Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast, returning once again to 1999 for a double shot of Al Pacino.
Yes. I didn't even realize that when we talked about it. It didn't register in my brain.
That is the same for me.
Yeah.
I was like, what I thought was we both chose interesting filmmakers to watch their films. Yeah. And then when I'm watching it, I'm like,
double Pacino.
This is Pacino, and it is sort of a, I don't know, like a prime spot for Pacino.
It's a good spot for him, yeah.
He's still like
he hasn't jumped the shark yet.
He's still one of the top actors in the world, but he's certainly really gone into that Pacino style.
Yeah, he's on his way to jumping the shark, but he hasn't. I don't think he's done it yet.
Right. I will say, watching these two movies in the same week, you could have told me that Pacino was 10 years older in Any Given Sunday than he was in The Insider, and I would have believed it.
Yeah.
I know part of it's the character. I guess we should just go ahead and say we're talking about the two movies that he did that came out in 1999, which is Any Given Sunday and The Insider.
Yep.
And so I guess I'm jumping the gun a little bit by saying they feel like different Pacino characters, at least in that in Any Given Sunday, they're really playing up he's the old coach, he's the guy sort of at the end of his career.
Yeah.
And in The Insider, well, let's just say there's several characters older than him that are playing the older guy characters, and he's just sort of still in his prime, Pacino, in that particular world. Yeah. So it did feel different.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive that he did both those movies in 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are two high-profile movies with two high-profile directors.
Yeah. So this is what I want to do to start. I wanted to start with The Insider.
Okay.
For one, it's very fresh.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I literally just finished watching it, drove over here, and began the podcast. I don't normally do that.
Yeah.
I was a procrastinator this week.
Yeah.
And,
so. You are very, very organized and very on top of things. So once in a while, you need to procrastinate a little bit.
I appreciate that. So The Insider, which came out November 5th, 1999, is Michael Mann's directed movie. Michael Mann, I think, was also kind of like Pacino, kind of right in his prime around this time.
He'd done Heat a few years prior to this.
He was known for the Miami Vice TV show.
Yep.
So, he obviously had a lot of success. And then this is the point in time when a movie comes out and it will say, advertised based on a Michael Mann film.
Yeah.
And then it's got Al Pacino in it, as we talked about. Big name still at the time. Still one of the biggest actors in the world at that time. And a relatively up-and-coming Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
I would say this is part of his breakout, but his real breakout came the next year when he was in Gladiator. Right. And that's when Russell Crowe became a household name.
It is. And it's the start of an impressive run of this, Gladiator, and Beautiful Mind. Yeah. I don't know. I think it was boom, boom, boom.
3 straight years he was nominated for Best Actor.
It's really impressive.
Movies. And then with a Gladiator and a Beautiful Mind, whether they should or shouldn't, were back-to-back Best Picture winners.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but it's still impressive.
It's still a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's still a thing that happened.
So, The Insider is a movie based on a true story movie. Of course, classic. Some of the names had to be changed, some of the events, and then of course there's always artistic license, but it's based on the true story of a inside whistleblower for the tobacco industry.
Yeah.
Al Pacino plays a producer for 60 Minutes. Russell Crowe plays a scientist who worked for a major tobacco company. And I'd seen this movie before, obviously, like most of these movies that we're doing for 1999 are movies that we'd seen before. And I remember it being a well-done movie, but I couldn't hardly remember any details about it.
Same.
So rewatching it, I was like, this is almost like watching a movie for the first time because I remembered so little about it. I remembered it being very procedural, which it is.
Yes, it is.
I remember a lot of phone conversations in dark rooms, not because nefarious things were going on, but just it's a lot of nighttime shots, a lot of rooms where the lights are dim. So that was accurate to the movie. But what I didn't remember was that Russell Crowe's character initially is not even trying to be a whistleblower or an insider, that Al Pacino's producer character gets basically a box of documents he can't understand. He's like, hey, can someone point me in a direction? He calls some sort of source and says, who can interpret this information for me? Puts him in touch with Russell Crowe, who happens to have just been fired, is in an interesting spot, and we kind of figure out, Al Pacino figures out, this guy's got some information to share, and I'm going to get him to share it, and that then sets off our chain of events.
Yep. It's an accurate description.
Yeah. And the movie is there's several movies that attempt to do this thing where they tell a story of the underdog who's taking on the big corrupt corporation.
Yeah.
They're always dour because it's always like how impossible it is to fight upstream against this company. And this movie's no different. I was watching it and I was going, okay, this was a critically acclaimed movie. 96% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 90% from audience. But this movie was a commercial bomb.
Yeah, like
big time
60 million.
60 million worldwide on a $90 million estimated budget.
Yeah, it just didn't find its audience.
And
it's a hard sell, though.
That's what I was thinking when I was watching. I was like, I'm not surprised that this movie didn't have a lot of commercial success because it is. It's a 2.5 hour long, very procedural, very dour movie that you've got to just be in on the great performances and the craft behind it to really enjoy it.
Yeah. So that just doesn't appeal to the mainstream audience.
And it is a movie for adults.
Oh, definitely.
I think that when I first watched this movie, I didn't watch it when it first came out. I think I was in my 20s though.
Yeah.
And I understood the movie, but rewatching it now, I was like, as a 40-year-old, I feel like this movie's much more for me than when I was a 20-something watching this movie.
Yeah.
Because the world of all this procedural stuff just makes so much more sense to me.
It does.
And so I get why you're taking all these elements of why the audience sort of narrows, bit by bit. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the movie. Because I think this is an incredibly well-made movie.
I agree completely. I was really into this movie watching it again this week. I really was. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's age. Maybe it's just having memories of it being a good movie, but now being able to watch it and just appreciate it more. And I was really into this movie.
I think I appreciated Crowe's performance way more.
I thought he was so good.
Russell Crowe's one of those guys. I think I've talked about this before. That like when he came on, I don't know why I was just sort of reluctant. I think because he blew up so.
He got so big so fast. He won Did he win the Oscar for Gladiator?
He did.
And I was like, that is not the best performance of the year.
Yeah.
So there was just a little bit of that, like, who's this guy?
And I definitely carried around that attitude around that time as a teenager, where I was like, I'm not buying this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread because you guys are telling me. But years removed from it, I've become over time
he's good.
a Russell Crowe fan. And so watching these performances that I used to watch with sort of a crossed arm, I almost refuse to believe it's that good. I'm going, okay, it was that good.
It's good. He is really good in this movie.
He is. They do a great job of aging him up, making him look so different. Like,
they do.
I'm like, no wonder I didn't remember for the longest time that Russell Crowe was the guy in this movie because they don't make him look like Russell Crowe.
Right.
Now he sounds like Russell Crowe. I mean,
he sounds like him,
he's got, we can make fun of the Pacino way of talking, that raspy, intense,
and then he gets real loud.
Yeah, that's the Pacino. But like Crowe has his own little idiosyncratic way of speaking that when he does it, I'm like, that's distinctly Crowe. Like, and it's good, but distinctly Crowe.
Yeah.
I do think this movie could have really benefited from a 30 minutes cut out of it.
Oh, it could have. It could have. But I think other than, I was trying to think of this, like Collateral's a pretty tight movie, but a lot of Michael Mann movies, Heat's 2 hours and 6 minutes. Like, he likes to really just get comfortable in the story and sit there for a while.
That's a very good point. You're right. Even a movie because Heat, you can look at and go, I kind of understand. It's telling this broad scope drama of both sides, the cops and the robbers. Then you can take a movie like Miami Vice, the Miami Vice movie, which didn't work at all.
It's a mess.
And it's a long movie, too. And you're like,
way
that
too
didn't
long.
have to be that long.
No, that screams, 90, 95-minute movie.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. 20 to 30 minutes, I think, could have easily been shaved off this movie.
And a lot of it's things that I do always talk about appreciating, taking your time with scenes. But some scenes I'm just looking at going like, it's taking its time, but it's when you have too long of a movie, I'm seeing like the clear spots to cut. There's the scene where he's at the golf driving range and he keeps looking over at the guy who's just looking at him. It's trying to build the paranoia of like.
But you're like, you've made the point.
But it's a 5-minute scene, and there's probably 5 scenes similar to it.
There is. Well, and it's like when you're telling this story like this that is not, obviously this is not an action movie. It's like you said, the procedural and the phone calls and stuff like that. So you're already asking your audience to be very patient anyway. And then when you have some of those scenes like the one you're talking about, or just some different ones that it's like, it's the repetition of like, I know what you're trying to show and convey, but you've already done that. You know what I mean? Like, so it definitely could have used some editing.
Yeah. I also think there's a little bit of a problem with knowing exactly what we're aiming for in this movie as an audience.
Yeah.
Because the first half of the movie it really sticks with Russell Crowe's character.
Yeah.
That's one thing that kind of shocked me is we're going through, halfway through the movie, I'm like, this is really
a Russell Crowe
movie, and Pacino is just sort of a supporting character.
Yeah.
And then it sort of shifts and it becomes much more Pacino focused, and Crowe kind of goes out because the challenge that they're facing shifts. Early on, is this guy gonna testify? Is he gonna do all this stuff? And then it becomes, well, now can we make the story? Can we actually push it through to the finish line? And looking back, I'm like, all of it makes sense. That is the process you have to go through. But it's not like at the beginning of the movie it lays out and you as an audience going, okay, what I hope happens by the end is we air this. So as you're going 2.5 hours through, you just feel like you're constantly like, we're shifting. Okay, now here's the next problem. We're just now introducing, and now we've got to figure it out for a while. And it's just challenging. That's all I'm saying. It's challenging for an audience member.
Yeah, I mean, like you rewatch this, and it makes total sense that this did not light the box office on fire. I mean, it does. It really does. Like, it's a really good, well done movie. But like I said, a hard movie to sell.
For sure. Going back to its critical acclaim, though, 7 Oscar nominations. Didn't win anything.
No.
But, I mean, it got a Best Picture nominee.
It did.
It got a Best Actor nominee for Russell Crowe. It got a Best Director nominee for Michael Mann. It got nominations for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, which is always funny for a movie that we're talking about. The biggest problem is cut more out.
Yeah, right.
And then a nomination for Best Sound, which is fascinating to me.
I don't understand those sometimes.
And I guess there was a lot of talking on the phone. That's honestly maybe the only thing that's not incredibly, but obviously dated about this movie is the lack of cell phones really stands out.
Sure.
There's a lot of payphone action.
It is.
A lot of landlines.
It is.
Other than that, I mean, I guess probably maybe some of the fashion, but but other than that, it felt pretty relevant.
I agree completely. Do you think Crowe should have won the Oscar?
I don't remember who did win it that year.
He was nominated for actor. Not supporting actor, right?
Correct. Best actor.
Actor in 1999.
I feel like surely we've talked about this.
Is it something dumb? Like, is it like the year like Roberto Benigni won for... Is it one of those?
I think it is...
Or that may have been the previous year.
I was
like, we can pause while you look. I should have done that research.
This is great podcasting right here.
It is. Everyone's on the edge of their seat.
Let's see. The best... actor, of course, it's not going to tell me that in the first thing that comes up.
Right, of course not.
Oh, it was Spacey for American Beauty.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can make the argument that Crowe. I honestly, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I would have rather have seen him won for this than I would have seen him won for Gladiator.
Yeah. So the nominees that year were Spacey, who won, Crowe for The Insider, Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story.
Don't even know what that movie is.
No idea. Sean Penn for Sweet and Low Down.
The Oscars are so weird and boring.
Denzel Washington for The Hurricane.
That's kind of a weak year, I think.
It's certainly a weak group of nominees. Unbelievable, though, like looking back at this year of the movies we've talked about.
I'd put Bruce Willis in there.
How many great performances, could have been in there. Edward Norton from Fight Club, I would have loved to have seen in there.
Yeah.
I would have...
Nicolas Cage bringing out the dead. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of better performances than what's just listed there, I think.
For sure.
But I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. But you could definitely talk me into Crowe deserving that Oscar.
Okay, I knew that we had talked about these Oscars for something before, and there was a win that
Cider House
Rules. Michael Caine won, and we talked about how much
Haley Joel Osment.
Well, Haley Joel Osment or Tom Cruise from Magnolia. We're like
Brad Pitt and Fight Club. You could talk me into any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely more of the travesty is that supporting one was loaded or could have been loaded. And
I mean, it's like sometimes it's like Oscars. You have brought this reputation on yourself of just being boring and like the Cider House Rules. Come on. Like Michael Caine's awesome. I love him in Nolan's movies and stuff, but come on.
Yeah. Pacino.
We've never really talked about Pacino on here before. I don't think we should talk about Pacino.
We need to have a Pacino conversation. First off, I'll say this. This is the Pacino that like I grew up with and knew, right? Like, so, I mean, 90s I think I was introduced to Pacino around the time of Heat.
Yeah.
That's because
that was a big deal. Like Pacino and De Niro are in this movie.
It came out in 95. I was 11. It's around the time I'm really starting to like be familiar with people in Hollywood and stuff like that. And I remember watching The Godfather when I was in college and being blown away by super subdued, calm Pacino.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like I've never seen this guy throw a different pitch than like
the Pacino we kind of know. Yeah.
Yeah. Pacino. And I don't know. I always think he's good.
Yeah.
But I always think like, what happened to that early Pacino that seemed so much more like, I don't know, like a character actor. And later in his career in the 90s, I still feel like Pacino's a little bit just playing himself. He's like, I'm going to knock this out of the park. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to be intense. I'm going to deliver the lines great. But I'm always going to feel like you're watching the same guy. Like, he reached a point where you'd see a movie with Pacino and you don't go like, ooh, I wonder what Pacino's going to do in this role. That's going to be unrecognized. How is he going to interpret this role? He's going to interpret it as Pacino.
Yeah.
Is what I feel like.
Yeah. That's really fair. And I don't remember really when I got introduced to Pacino. Probably The Godfather. Obviously I was looking back at The Godfather,
right.
And it's like, and I got, I've talked about it before. I saw The Godfather in theater this year. I mean, I think truly in The Godfather 1 and 2, I don't even know how to separate them. I mean, 2 of just the greatest performances ever. And then he's on this run in the 70s, like he does like Injustice for All, and he does what is the bank Dog Day Afternoon. He's doing all these acclaimed movies. So then there's this really weird spot you get, I think it's after Scarface. Pacino just disappears for like 5 years. He goes and does, I think, theater. I think maybe there was some drug problems and different things. And then he comes back. And then he comes back as kind of the guy you're talking about. Like Sea of Love and Carlito's Way and some of these movies. And then Heat. And I really remember it starts to turn to me around Devil's Advocate. He does that. And he's just doing the most in that movie. Like he is just... And then he just like never stopped being that guy. I mean, he was still giving good performances. But yeah, it's just a fascinating career. And then he jumps back a few years ago. He does The Irishman with Scorsese, and he's more like jumping back into like being that character actor. Like he's playing what is the name escape me right now? The guy who they don't know where his body is.
Hoffa, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like he's not doing the Pacino stuff. He is more subdued and stuff. So it's a really fascinating career. But I mean, you could list 10 or 15 probably just amazing Pacino movies. Like he's got a good resume, but it's a strange career.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Besides Pacino, this really does have like a loaded cast, especially of kind of like that guys.
Yeah.
Want to always shout out Bruce McGill, who's one of my favorite guys.
Oh my gosh, he is a guy.
And it seems like a Michael Mann favorite. I feel like he pops up all the time. Michael Mann.
Yeah, Bruce. I think Michael Mann uses a lot of the same people.
But he's got one of the best moments in the movie when they have the courtroom scene and the guy keeps objecting, and Bruce McGill, who does one of the things Bruce McGill is just great at, is just letting out a tirade of verbal assault. Just lets the guy have it.
He does.
And I was just like, Bruce McGill. I was like, best.
No, he did great.
Best supporting actor. There should be a whole category of best supporting actors that's like less than 5 minutes of screen time.
Right.
And like for performances like that where Bruce McGill comes in as like,
it's awesome.
I came in to pitch to one specific batter. I threw 3 straight fastballs and struck him out, and I'm out of
gone.
Here. Yeah, like,
or it's like on the rewatchables, like came in, made 3 threes in 2.5 minutes, and then went back on the bench.
Yeah, and that was definitely what Bruce McGill did in this one. Michael Mann, I think, is such an interesting filmmaker to me because
he is.
He he does a couple things that he really likes realism.
Yeah.
And of course, that's why a movie like this probably was really interesting to him, because it was just it's so grounded.
Yeah.
Like, it's very procedural. He loves procedural stuff.
Yeah.
Even in like Heat, which is sold on the premise of being a good, cops and robbers movie and stuff. But everything he does in it is very like realistic to the procedure, and then even realistic to like, this is what a shootout would actually look like and sound like in public.
That was big, yeah.
And like people who know the stuff like praise it for its realism and stuff. That's sort of his deal. And so watching this, I'm going like, what would this movie have looked like with a more like sort of standard filmmaker?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worse because they don't appreciate all the procedural stuff like he does? Or
is it
does
more
somebody else find it a little more like, just somebody else look at it and go like, hey, we're going to like bore the crowd to tears.
We got to find a way to...
And I actually lean towards like, I think it's good that Michael Mann did this and made it as procedural as he did.
I think so too.
But he also bounces out he's also like a film guy. Like, he does things in this movie, like early on, he's doing shots like these like right over the shoulder shots. And I'm going like, this is a guy trying to direct and like do things with the camera. And he's not just, for somebody whose storytelling taste is so dry.
Right.
He's not like trying to be dry with the actual filmmaking art of it.
Yeah, he's fascinating. If you ever watch, like, if you ever read, like, or watch, like, interviews with him or watch, like, the behind the scenes of, like, on one of his DVDs, he's very fond of talking about what a genius he is. like he's very proud of himself. Like, he's one of those guys, like, smartest guy in the room and knows it kind of deal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I typically enjoy his movies. I mean, his most recent movie was Ferrari, which we both saw last year, which was good.
Yeah.
It was fine. Like, but it wasn't like, boy, that was just a bad movie.
Right.
Like, it was a good movie. I don't know. It's interesting. But like, he goes back, he was the first director to ever tackle Hannibal Lecter. He did Manhunter back in the day in the 80s, which is very different from like the Silence of the Lambs and stuff we know now. Last of the Mohicans, maybe like that might be like his most commercial.
It probably is,
like, genre type movie. I mean, that's an action movie, really.
Yeah.
With our guy DDL.
Yeah, that was sort of an anomaly movie all around, because like, it's kind of like, this is unique to Michael Mann's filmography. It's unique to DDL's filmography. It's that's a strange movie. But yeah. And then Heat, of course, is maybe like, if Heat didn't have quite the immediate impact that Last of the Mohicans had, it's probably had more of a like staying power.
I'd say Heat is probably his legacy movie. I would think. Yeah. Collateral. I mean, that's just one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I think Collateral is probably I don't know if it's like film nerds that love it or what, but I feel like it's really loved, but I don't think as many people know it, and I don't think it's thought of as a Michael Mann movie the same way that like Heat is.
Collateral is so much as like the emergence of Jamie Foxx and then like Cruise being the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's what kind of gets the attention in Collateral.
And Michael Mann is not somebody who writes all of his own stuff.
Right.
So there's that variance with when you're a director who doesn't write all your own stuff. Like, sometimes it's just like, it's going to feel more or less like your movie based on how strong the script originally is. Now, I know with Collateral, because I've seen the like original script compared to the Michael Mann, like once he got a hold of it and like did his work on it. It's not like he changed the story, but it was just funny to watch, to see just kind of a look into Michael Mann. Is the original screenplay was just a very like sort of standard screenplay, like open in this, and then this character says this and that, and just looks very standard. The Michael Mann one all of a sudden has all these like shooting instructions on it. I mean, it's suddenly like very technical, laid out, and does, like it did like trim things down, like cut out some dialogue. We don't need that because we're going to show this, like it just, you could see it's somebody who went through it. Like, he didn't just go, okay, this is a great script, let's film it. He went through and he's like, how do I imprint my vision onto this thing?
I think he always has that desire to, like, he wants to make it his movie.
Yeah. But going back to why Collateral feels different is I think he definitely imprinted on that movie, but I think it was already like a unique enough
movie
story that, sometimes it's like the perfect convergence of like, Collateral is sort of a silly movie, this like taxi driver who gets caught hauling around a hitman and he knows it and he's got to make the hits. That is sort of a silly premise. But then you take somebody like Michael Mann with his realism and his proceduralism.
Yeah. It's a cool marriage.
It gives it this like ability to watch the movie and not feel like you're watching something ridiculous. Yeah. We talk about this with my favorite movie, The Social Network, how it takes Sorkin, who is this known for all his idealism in his screenplays, and then it's directed by Fincher, who's known for all his gritty darkness, and the two balance each other out to like make something beautiful that doesn't feel like any of their other stuff because of the blend. And I think that's what happened with Man and Collateral.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I was thinking is I don't know that a movie like this would get. I almost guarantee this would not have gotten a theatrical release today. I think it would have gone to the Apple TV or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like what's the closest thing. We've had some courtroom dramas, I guess, that are again like taking on. So I'm trying to think of what it was called. Was it called like Dark Waters or something? It was like another drama where
like we're going to expose the
some industry that's
right.
And I remember it being
I don't think it made any
movie, but like it
didn't make any kind of impact.
It's always the same thing. It's because they're always so dour. It's always like, hey, this company's doing terrible things. Here's the person who's trying to fight back against it, but they just can't get any traction because everybody's in the pocket of these people. And,
and the one time it seemed like Hollywood really made that work, a movie like that was Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah.
That was like Julia Roberts' star power because that made big money.
And the way that they sort of sidestepped how like dour and procedural it is they made it really character focused.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to focus on this individual who seems out of place in this world.
Yeah, and she cusses a lot. Like they had to kind of like gimmick it up a little bit.
She uses her street smarts in this world of lawyers and procedure. Yeah.
But I was thinking watching this is like this would either be like a 6-episode like mini series thing on Amazon Prime or something. I really doubt it would be a theater release right now.
Yeah.
For better or worse. For worse, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, this is probably the least we've ever really talked about a plot of a movie while talking about a movie, but it's such a like.
I mean, otherwise you'd have to walk through like, okay, so then they make this phone call and they find out that we would bore our audience to tears. Like, and it's hard to even be like everyone should go watch this movie because I know like a lot of people would watch this and. They'd be not, so I don't know. I liked it. I was glad to go back and rewatch it. I know this is not a original or a hot take, but to me, the big standout was just how good Russell Crowe is.
Yeah.
He's so good. And it's such a bummer now. He's doing these like really crappy, like direct to Netflix Exorcist movies and like The Pope's Exorcist. And he did like 3 exorcism movies, like Boom, Boom, Boom. And it's like, dude, because like I said, whether I agree with, Beautiful Mind and Gladiator winning Best Picture. That was a heck of a run.
Absolutely.
Master and Commander is awesome. He's really good in that. Like he was on a roll, and so it was like, oh man, Russell Crowe. He's kind of fallen off.
Yeah, and he's still very talented though.
Yeah,
even doing these bad movies. So he was in a movie earlier this year called Land of Bad, which is a generic action movie starring the generic Hemsworth, Liam.
Yeah.
And in it, he's just a supporting character who's operating a drone that's overseeing this soldier who's kind of trapped behind enemy lines in the woods. And the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm going like, Russell Crowe is way too good for this material, but he's kicking butt in this movie. Like he's just so much fun to watch on screen.
Yeah.
The best parts of the movie are we're just watching him in a chair, like talking to him over a computer.
He definitely has a charisma.
And I'm like, and it was one of those movies I'm watching going like, why is Russell Crowe kind of gone away? And
I know. Why is he settling for these direct to Netflix crappy horror movies?
Yeah,
and I don't know.
It might just be a problem of the roles aren't there for him.
Maybe
roles for a guy who's his age, his size, because
he's let himself go a little bit. Yeah. It's about one. And I remember there was a lot of buzz back in the day too, like that he was a jerk. Like, do you remember that? I definitely remember that.
A little difficult to work with.
Short temper and stuff like that. But I like him. Even something like Man of Steel, like he's in that, and it's the same thing where it's like he's elevating this
for sure.
Yeah,
that's a good call.
So it was really fun to go back and watch. I enjoyed watching the whole movie, but I really enjoyed watching Russell Crowe's performance.
Yeah. I guess I do need to just shout out that the last like really good movie that he was in was The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And that was a great dynamic.
That was
Ryan Gosling's sort of goofiness and Russell Crowe playing the more straight man.
Yeah. I wouldn't count him out though. I could definitely see him, he just one, like anybody, I guess, but just one roll away from, somewhere there's probably the right marriage for him of, director, script, movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of have like a comeback in a way.
Yeah, and this time I would actually enjoy it and root for it rather than being the cynical.
You're right though. It's so weird.
Kid.
You're kind of just predisposed to be like, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's talk Any Given Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Any Given Sunday was released on December 22nd, 1999. Wasn't as hailed by the critics, only 52% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, 73% from the audience, 0 Oscar nominations, but it did receive an MTV Movie Award nomination for Breakthrough Male Performance for Jamie Foxx.
The prestigious MTV
as
Movie
well
Awards.
as a Teen Choice Award nomination for Choice Hissy Fit from Cameron Diaz.
Oh, okay, good.
So
good.
It didn't totally get ignored by
it got the important nominations. Yes. Once you get that Hissy Fit nomination, you're doing good.
This one had a $55 million budget. Cannot believe that it was so much less than The Insider, because I would have guessed it had a bigger budget.
I know.
It grossed $100 million worldwide. So,
and I bet you it's one of those movies that did well, like in DVD sales and rentals and stuff.
That would definitely make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This movie follows a fictitious professional football league. Presumably just they couldn't get the rights from the NFL.
I didn't even remember that. I didn't remember that it wasn't the NFL.
I did remember that, and it's such a bummer because I feel like this movie automatically is like 25% better if it's just using NFL stuff, because some of the generic
makes it feel like you're just watching a generic
and stuff is like, this just doesn't look good.
It jumps out,
But it follows the Miami Sharks, not Miami Dolphins, Miami Sharks.
The Sharks.
Opens on a game just in the middle of the season, and their star quarterback, an older star who's had a lot of success, played by Dennis Quaid, gets injured. Backup quarterback comes in, and he is just played as a just bumbling idiot.
He is.
He immediately gets injured.
Really bad.
And so the movie really takes off. The whole plot of the movie is essentially that Jamie Foxx's character, Willie Beeman, comes into the game, and he becomes the quarterback for this stretch while their star quarterback is out. Al Pacino is the coach who's aging, and they butt heads, but Beeman's actually having some success.
Yep.
He's popular with the fans.
The success goes to his head.
The young owner, played by Cameron Diaz, wants him to continue to be the star because he's more marketable. Yeah. It follows several other characters. It's just kind of showing you into the world of professional football, and it's in ways idealistic, but in ways it's very like dark, and showing you like how they'll just let these guys
kill themselves
in order to filter the profit.
The one guy's hooked on the like the pain medicine or whatever.
Yeah, and they're all worried about just their bonuses and all this sort of stuff. So it toes a line between like giving fans enough of like that like good sports movie stuff you want, but also like a dark look at this world that it's trying to take you into. Yeah,
it's really interesting because like when I grew up, I always felt like when I was growing up, the sports movies were really like family friendly. Like, it was like Field of Dreams, Major League, Necessary Roughness, Rookie of the Year. You get like these really, sweet almost sports movies. And then things started to shift, maybe around like Varsity Blues, maybe before that. But when it was like they started taking like a grittier look at sports. And this is, So that was one reason I wanted to do this movie, because it's kind of interesting the switch and how, or the shift in how they portrayed sports and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's such. I didn't even think about the fact that this and Varsity Blues came out in the same year. Yeah. So rough year for football in movies, just as far as like. But the Varsity Blues does the same thing. It toes that line between like.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like the full out like.
There's still sort of a love letter to football in it, while also showing you like some of the darker elements
for sure.
So that was my first note, was just I love the world that they're exploring. There's so many little plot lines in this movie, and they all just ring very real. From that, the older quarterback who's hurt and he's trying to come back, and he's kind of waffling back and forth between like, don't you give up my spot? That's my spot. I'm coming back for it. But also like, I'm late in my career. my body hurts, everything hurts. Maybe it's just time to quit. Maybe I don't want to do this anymore.
He's got
Maybe
the wife who is only using him for his money.
Yeah,
and
she's like, you can't quit.
You can't quit.
Quarterback.
No,
yeah. And then the young star, rising star, and being all about himself. But there's some great scenes of dialogue. There's the argument he's having with Al Pacino, where Al Pacino's laying out this is what you don't get, son. You're supposed to be about the team. And then he does all his stuff about let me tell you my history, how nobody's looked after me, and that's why I'm going to take care of me. And while they're having this argument, I'm going they really didn't write him dumb, or these are all, both sides are making good points.
Which always makes for the best dialogue in movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that could have gone really wrong with the Jamie Foxx character, where he just so over the top and how big his head gets and how quick and stuff. But they actually do it way better than I thought it would. I remember that was a point of the movie, and I was saying all right, I got to sit through Jamie Foxx being, over the top and all that. But it's like you said, when he starts making those counter arguments, you're like, okay, that's pretty good. That's really good dialogue.
Yeah. What I did walk away from this movie thinking, though, is this would have been, in my opinion, so much better as a miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much they try to pack into
this
movie.
Too long.
There's so many stories.
They needed to cut out 3 stories.
I would say they did. The problem is I get what they were thinking. Each of the stories was interesting, and it's showing you the belt team. And that's where I'm if you do a miniseries, you can actually sort of dive into all this.
Yeah. I think for the sake of this movie, they should have picked a couple of things and just eliminated them. Yeah. Because it's too long, and there's too much stuff crammed into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to go ahead and say this. I don't know what your opinion is. I thought Cameron Diaz was so bad in this movie.
Really?
I did not think she was good.
I watched it, and you know what I thought?
The
opposite. I remember she got a bad rep for this movie.
Yeah.
I actually think she's really good.
Yeah? I just didn't think she was good.
What is it about it though?
I don't know.
She's just bad line delivery?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. Maybe it's just we have this the Cameron Diaz persona so burned into our minds of just the charming, happy, and maybe it was just so weird for me to see her, kind of different. And I don't know. I just did not like her character. Not her character. I just did not like her performance in this movie. But I mean, that's that's movies,
Yeah. I don't know. I thought she did a really good job. She had this sort of intensity, bratty, she is a real person.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I was I feel like this is, I don't know. I just feel like this is a real person in real life, where
that's fair.
She's kind of young, kind of aggressive, and her this is what I want. We're gonna do it my way. Another one where she's having arguments with Al Pacino, and I'm both sides are making good points.
Yeah, I just didn't. I just don't think I buy her in this role, and that was just hard for me to overcome. But that's it's just probably nitpicky stuff on my part.
No, I mean it's fine. I actually get excited when we disagree, because
it doesn't happen that
too
often.
much
I know. However, I thought Pacino was awesome in this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, you didn't?
No. So here's what I'm gonna say. I think Pacino again is really good. He does what he does so well.
That's what it is.
I just think it's so hard for me to accept him as a football coach, because I just don't believe that Al Pacino knows anything about football.
Probably not.
And I get it. Most actors playing these parts probably don't. But for whatever reason, I'm watching Aaron Eckhart play his assistant, and I'm going, I buy him as a football coach. I don't know what it is. I buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And Al Pacino, I think maybe it's just having too much history with him, and him being this tiny little guy too.
I know.
And
I think what it was is I just so liked seeing Pacino in this environment.
Yeah.
Because he's never done anything like this before. We think of him like Godfather, or I don't know, Cop is usually what you think of Pacino. Yeah. I think I was just so happy to be football coach Pacino.
Yeah.
I love it.
So my note was, not sure I love Pacino in this role. However, he crushes the Inches speech, which is the key part of the movie. When he's
so good.
When he's doing that speech, I'm okay, this is why you do cast Pacino in this part. Because even if you look at him and go is he a football coach? He's giving that speech and you're going, okay, yeah, I'm ready to charge the field with the players.
He's so good
I guess
in that
this is
scene.
why he's a good football coach, because he can deliver lines and speeches like Pacino.
He nails that.
So good.
It's really good.
It's an underrated sports movie speech.
You never hear about it.
It's...
That's what I was going to ask too. Is this whole movie just kind of forgotten to time?
I think largely, yes.
Yeah.
I will say, I know that little 10-second clip from this speech will show on Jumbotrons at sporting events. You know, they'll pull out a line of him saying like, you know, you got to fight for every inch or whatever, and they'll play that. But as a whole, I think it's pretty,
because it's like even a lot of sports movies,
lost.
like you said, it feels like they imprint on like sports culture too, like whether it's showing it like on the jumbotrons or referencing, you know, like as a coach, like locally here. And this movie just feels like it's forgotten to time.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the reasons is the gritty stuff that they're showing maybe was a little less like, oh, this is real behind the scenes than they thought.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, like, when they're showing, like, man, they really, like, these players treat them like a piece of meat and then throw them out. And I think the whole world was like, yes, we knew that, actually.
Yeah.
And, like, kind of move on. You know? And maybe that's why it didn't quite have the impact, because when you take away, like, the shock value of that, there's better movies for the like just sports, like
there are
moments and stuff. Like I think the sports moments are good in this, but I think that's what they were banging on. We got all the sort of sports moments, but we got this like dark side where we're showing you
and
the
people just
negative
didn't
side.
grab on.
And I think
that.
we're just kind of like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah, because I feel like even like Varsity Blues you hear more Varsity Blues conversation than you do Any Given Sunday.
Yeah. Because I think they had more going for it than just like, hey, here's the dark side to high school sports.
Yeah. Well, on Any Given Sunday too, like it. I don't know. It's definitely trying to be more adult, than Varsity Blues. I mean, clearly. So maybe it just, I don't know. Like for a movie that made $100 million worldwide, it just doesn't feel like you have a lot of conversation about it.
Yeah, I think we have to have the Oliver Stone talk now.
Yeah,
Oliver Stone is really directing in this movie.
Yeah,
this is the most directed movie I've ever seen in my life.
Is it?
This is like, I was watching it and I was like, glad to see that cocaine-fueled directing was alive and well in 1999, because
I think specifically Oliver Stone on cocaine directing was alive and well, because his movies are just
and I have to say, like, Oliver Stone is a guy whose catalog I have not explored very much. I can't be like, this is a distinctly Oliver Stone thing, but I'm watching this movie going like, this dude can't let one scene play out without having to feel like I've got to overlap it with, okay, so now the quarterback and the coach are arguing, and I've got to splice in shots of lightning and then shots of Ben-Hur, which was playing on his TV to show like these are gladiators, and I've got to do all this stuff. And it's like, dude, could you just chill out and take your ADD medicine and let's like just have a scene?
And when you do that for what is this movie? 2 hours, and it's long.
Yeah. I don't remember
exactly what it was either.
But it's 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Yeah. Gosh, when you say that is just way too long for this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. He's doing everything all the time. And when you watch that for 2 hours and 42 minutes, it can be a little exhausting.
Yeah.
But that's what he does. Like Natural Born Killers, he's doing everything that entire movie. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't need everything happening. Like the football action, that is what, that speaks for itself. And then it's like Pacino's speeches and stuff like that. That is what you need. You don't need the cuts and the this and the that. And there's 9 conversations going on. And like you said, and then it's cutting to this, and then it's lightning. And then it's like, dude.
Yeah. A whole lot of, I know, again, sometimes I'm more like, just give me a traditional shot, than I don't like getting too artistic, but there's a whole lot of camera work in this movie that's supposed to disorient you. It's Pacino looking in the crowd, but then it's like he's seeing overlaid over the crowd like these visions of the old timey stuff, and then on the field, we're gonna really show you this like shaky thing, like the guy's vision, he can't hardly see straight, and it's just too much.
There's a lot going
where
on.
I'm like, I get it. Like football's a lot.
And that's all Oliver Stone. I mean, that's that's all him. And it's like, dude, yeah, you're right, for sure.
So this is where I would love to see somebody who's not Oliver Stone make the Any Given Sunday miniseries, a 10-part, hour-long each, really dive into all these different storylines where you've got all these characters, coaches, defensive players, team doctors. That was... Matthew Modine, who plays is he a good actor or a terrible actor?
I don't know,
because
I think he might be
seen
terrible.
Him in things that he's okay in, but this movie, I was like,
yeah,
I feel like he's a wooden statue in this movie.
Yeah,
just
he's in Dark Knight Rises, and he's not. I don't know. I always thought he was not good in that too. Yeah. I don't know, but and that's the problem too with any movie. But like in this movie, when you're throwing so much, like some stuff is just not going to get the time it needs to be interesting. So then just don't do it.
Yeah,
and that's ultimately the biggest fault of this movie is too long and there's way too much they're trying to cram in. To the movie.
I think if we're cutting things out in the movie, honestly, like a lot of Pacino's personal life stuff,
don't
cut
care
that right out.
I really don't. Yeah,
that didn't,
because it's like when you're playing the football, we know all we need to know. He's the older football coach who's trying to hold on to like his old ways, and he's got, excuse me, he's got Cameron Diaz. It's like that's what we need. I don't need all this other stuff. Like what's her face from Saved by the Bell character,
Elizabeth Berkley.
Cut it. Stupid. Pointless.
Yeah. Didn't need it. We should also bring up that this is the second 1999 movie we're doing with LL Cool J in it.
It is.
Once again, being awesome. I also love the fact that this is the second LL Cool J 1999 movie, and he went from battling sharks to being a shark.
Yeah, he did. Again, I don't want to be repetitive because we had this when we did Deep Blue Sea. I can't believe LL Cool J wasn't huge after this.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it in Deep Blue Sea. Like he's hilarious in that movie.
Yeah. And he's good in this one. And he looks believable as a football player.
I think so too.
And he's one of the characters I think got short shrift in the overpacking
we
of this
don't
movie.
Have the time. Yep. What did you think of Dennis Quaid in this movie?
He's another one I go back and forth on, and I'm like, is Dennis Quaid a good actor?
Mm-hmm.
There are moments in this movie where I think so. And then there's moments where it's really odd. And that's what really makes me think like maybe a lot of it goes back to the director and how odd this movie is made.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I don't know either. It's not like, I don't think he was bad. I don't think that at all. But I just wonder like, could someone, and I don't know who, made that, brought more to that character and made it more compelling.
Yeah. Again, it sounds contradictory because I think you're so right. It's too long. A lot should be cut out
for a movie. We need more focus on some things.
And yet, because they try to juggle so many things, I'm going, some of the badness is how quickly they had to rush through character arcs.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the problem with Dennis Quaid's character is they're like, okay, I need you to go from here to here to here to here.
Really quick.
And you basically just get a scene for each one.
Yeah.
And so, good luck making your character feel like a coherent arc. And even the same for Jamie Foxx is like, they do, I think, a better job with him getting his big head, but the sort of redemptive part kind of happens too fast.
It does, yeah.
Because they just don't have time to show how he gets back, to
You're right.
level.
And then it almost makes for this weird contradiction where we're saying it's way too long, but we also need, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to just throw out real quick, Aaron Eckhart, underrated in my opinion.
He is.
Yeah. Like that dude's always good.
Yeah. I think the most shocking thing about his career, is I think we'd all say we would have guessed after The Dark Knight that he's like, okay, here it is. This is where it's really going to feel like he's been good for a while. He's kind of been like a B star, but this is going to help propel him to A. And I feel like that's the point at which it just dropped off.
I know. I think he's always solid.
Yeah. I think, so here's my pitch. Let's make an Any Given Sunday miniseries where we get to flesh this out, and let's make Aaron Eckhart the head coach. Let's just build it up. Like he's been the head coach of the Sharks since then. He's the old coach now. He's the Pacino role.
I'm all for it. I'd watch it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too.
Yep.
Literally anybody but Oliver Stone directing.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. What was the last thing Oliver Stone did? I wonder.
I looked this up. Let me click on it real quick because I've got it pulled up on IMDb here.
He just loved JFK. That's a movie where just everything is happening all the time.
Yeah. He directed something called Lula.
Never heard of it.
Which is a political documentary.
Oh boy.
Of course it is. He's a very political guy, I guess we could say that. The last kind of movie that he did that anybody heard of was Snowden in 2016.
Oh yeah. Jeez. So he's not doing a whole lot these days.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
And before that, Savages 2012, which was a movie I did not think worked.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Another movie where there's just way too much going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through Wall Street. Money Never Sleeps, 2010.
That's a dud.
South of the Border, I've not heard of. 2009. W in 2008. I never watched it because it just
never saw it.
World Trade Center in 2006, which I actually thought was a pretty good movie.
It is,
but I watched it the once and I've never watched it again.
It's not something. Yeah, it's not a feel good revisit movie.
Alexander in 2004, famous box office disaster.
Yeah. Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely not a guy who I'm like, just an Oliver Stone movie is not going to get me to the theater.
No.
Like, it has to. Something about it has to look interesting. What I mean to say is his name alone is not going to draw me in. It's not like Scorsese or Spielberg or something.
Yeah. And was this peak of his powers? I mean, as far as like name recognition, I feel like Oliver Stone used to be a name that people were like, Oliver Stone movie.
Well, I think I can remember like just some buzz, like Oliver Stone doing a football movie was like a point of conversation.
Yeah. And then because of the movies he had done before, he was known for being like very kind of wild, but like a little dark. And people knew when he was doing a football movie, it wasn't going to be like, they knew it wasn't going to be that traditional, like you're saying, feel good.
No, definitely. Movie. Like he won an Oscar for Platoon. Like he had a name. But things like it seemed like maybe like after Alexander, that was probably like just a drop off because that was such a legendary bomb. But I do want to say, like, I did enjoy watching this movie, and maybe I shouldn't have said I thought Cameron Diaz was awful. I just didn't buy her. I don't know. I just didn't buy her in the role. But I also honestly, I'm just really not a Cameron Diaz fan.
Really?
I watched Gangs of New York a couple weeks ago, and I thought she was awful in that too.
Yeah,
and then I was just like, maybe I just don't like Cameron Diaz.
I thought about that, and I was like, I was thinking about that while watching this, and I was going, I remember people were not being on Cameron Diaz in this movie. And like I'm enjoying it. It's like I remember those kind of the time where it was like she was trying to prove she was a real actress. And then I was thinking people really didn't like her in Gangs of New York. Yeah. And I was like, but that one's to me was a little different because she was trying to do a lot in that movie.
The accent wasn't working.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with Gangs of New York is just Daniel Day-Lewis just obliterates everybody.
Literally everyone.
So literally everyone else just seems so dull and uninteresting.
Yeah, one of the all-time
it's just it's like he just wiped he just dominated everyone in that movie.
Whereas in this one, like Cameron Diaz at least got to like look like herself, use her own voice and all that stuff.
True.
And so I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed her performance.
Like you said, we don't always have to agree.
Exactly. Jamie Foxx, I think we do need to talk a little bit about him as an actor because I think MTV was right. This was a great breakthrough performance for a male actor.
You nailed it, MTV Movie Awards.
Yeah.
It's like it's a kind of amazing. He had never played a role like that before. Because it's so obviously that's what he should be doing. Yeah,
he was. I mean, just kind of a comedic guy. He was on In Living Color, right? Yeah, and I knew him from that. And when he shows up in this, it's like, I like this guy. Like he's funny and talented, and like it's cool that he's being in this more serious movie. Yeah. And but it's just funny to look back now. Yeah, now we know Jamie Foxx is an Oscar-winning actor, and he's great.
Yeah.
But back then it was kind of a shock to be like, wow, they're really like giving Jamie Foxx a lot of shine in this serious movie starring Al Pacino.
For sure. But I mean, you look back and it really was a launching pad because then just a few years later, he's in Collateral and Ray in the same year, not Oscar nominated for both, wins for Ray. I mean, that's one of the all-time great years, but he's another one where it's like he had this rise and then and then he just, I don't know. It doesn't feel like he was able to sustain that.
Yeah. It is strange. I don't know. Like
I remember he did this really terrible, like fighter pilot movie, like just like Stealth. It's just a really bad movie. And it just, I couldn't even tell you the last thing he was. Oh, he's really good in Django Unchained.
Yeah.
But now I did see where he's coming out with one of these crappy, generic looking Netflix action movies with Cameron Diaz coming out in a couple months. And they're like the married couple and they have a kid, but they used to be spies. And it's just one of those. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of scrolling through his IMDb and saying, what's the last
It's not
movie
great
I really
in the
enjoyed?
last few years, is it?
Man, it's like supporting roles like in Baby Driver and Horrible Bosses, and Horrible Bosses 2. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, I enjoyed him in those, but he doesn't do a lot.
He's not doing a lot. No, like I said, I mean, he's really good in Django Unchained, but
yeah, I think part of it is just really talented guy, but maybe he's not great at picking roles.
It seems that way.
I don't know. And even like, agree. So maybe the biggest sort of miss for him was that Amazing Spider-Man 2, right? Where everyone, I think he was kind of still a little bit riding high. People were like, yeah, Jamie Foxx really likes this guy. And he does this really
terrible,
odd,
it's so bad
character.
And I don't, it's not just his fault. It's a terribly written character. It's just stupid. It's not a good movie. It's not a good performance. It's not a good character. Yeah, he's Electro, and it's bad.
Yeah, and I think that was maybe a moment where people were like not really necessarily turning on Jamie Foxx, but just kind of realizing like Jamie Foxx is really talented, and he'll go for it, and he'll do things. But when it's not something we want to see, he's not one of these guys that's gonna. How do I say? Like, it's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about with Pacino. Like, Pacino's gonna take the bad thing. We're like, we know he's gonna deliver it with his like conviction and stuff. Fox is going to try things and swing big, and he might just swing big and miss. And so I think people are like, I don't know how we feel about this guy who like he's going to swing big, and when we don't like it, we're really not going to like it.
You're right. I agree. And that's a great example to point out Amazing Spider-Man 2. You're right. It does feel like that was kind of a point where it's almost like people kind of gave up on him in a way, maybe. And then like that's such a bad character when it comes back in Spider-Man No Way Home, he's completely different.
Yeah.
And he's like, because they wrote him as like this so over the top. He had the big glasses like hanging down and like the greasy hair, and it's like this is just a caricature. I'm not saying that right, but it's like it was bad. And then in Spider-Man No Way Home, he really takes a major backseat to Willem Dafoe, to Dr. Octopus, everybody. And so at that point, it's like, oh man, maybe Jamie Foxx just isn't that relevant anymore.
Yeah. Maybe he's too willing to be a team player with that one. But also, I always look at that Spider-Man 2 example and go, you got Jamie Foxx, one of the coolest dudes on the planet to be in your movie. And your idea was, let's make him
the nerdiest human cool. Yeah, like possible. So over the top. Like, guys, it's bad. It's bad.
I get it. I'm being a little bit critical because it can be done well. I was about to say it's like getting Brad Pitt in your movie and asking him not to be cool. Well, Brad Pitt did Burn After Reading and played like the goofy guy and stuff. Yeah. It's like it's somehow that's just different because they didn't. There was still like this charm to him. He still had to be like lovably goofy and stupid.
This guy's just a loser.
Yes, and Jamie Foxx is like. I literally don't want to watch. I don't want to watch this guy on screen. He's so pathetic. It makes me sad. It just
like he literally turns into the villain. Like he literally just falls in a tank of electric eels because he's an idiot. And then it's so bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And it maybe just speaks to what we've talked about before too, where it's really hard to become a star and stay a star.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, if someone with all the charisma and charm of Jamie Foxx couldn't do it, then I mean that speaks to how hard it is.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but he does this. He's really, I thought he was, I don't want to say he's like, he didn't blow me off the screen, but like he does exactly what he needs to do in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it? Yeah, I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. What do you think about no Oscar nominations? I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Because I don't know what the Oscar nomination would be.
I don't either.
I mean, would it be Jamie Foxx for supporting actor? But we were talking about that was a pretty good year for supporting actor. There's good performances that didn't get the nomination, and then
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. That's sure as heck wouldn't nominate Oliver Stone for Best Director.
No, you could give him the whatever MTV Movie Award for the most of everything. Yeah.
Oliver Stone wins the MTV Award for most cocaine done on set.
Hands down, the runaway winner.
Yeah. Honestly, like with the last thing I'll say about Oliver Stone's direction, because I've just been going on about how much I don't like it, but there's so much in it that I'm going, did like film nerds at the time love this? Did they like study it in film school and be like, and now look as he overlays this with this picture?
I don't know.
Or is it all just kind of like empty stylistic crap that I kind of look at it as?
That's how I feel about it.
That's how I feel about it. I would love, and again, with the critic response being 52%, maybe that is.
So yeah, it doesn't seem like it was.
I would just love to hear the critic who's going like, no, it's all genius. You don't understand.
You don't understand.
Yes, this symbolized this and heightened the senses of this. And I'd be like, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But it's annoying to watch.
But I honestly don't. I didn't pick up on a single bit of any of it. I mean, literally, other than the very heavy-handed, these guys are gladiators while showing you Ben-Hur gladiator race scenes.
Very heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Well, like what we're talking about, like, you know, Pacino's speeches stuff when the movie's at its best is when everything isn't happening.
Yeah, when it's not manic.
Yeah. That's when the movie's at its best. Like, let these guys cook. You have good actors in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to do everything. Like I said, the action is the football.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was annoying.
Yeah. So then my final point on the movie itself is not great with the football stuff.
Yeah.
Like, clearly they didn't get a lot of real fluid footage of like a whole play because everything is chopped to heck. I mean, they don't throw a pass thrown that isn't like 1 second of the release, ball in the air, completely disconnected. As the catch is happening, like there's not a lot of fluidity to it. It just made me go like they didn't capture a lot of good stuff. They just had to chop it together and make it look like. And then also just the ending, which is such a weird ending because they start the credits and then have this whole long
was super
scene.
weird. That was really weird.
And my only guess is the studio is like, hey, this movie is too long. You've got to cut it down. And he's cutting as much as he can. And he finally just goes, you know what? We'll do credits while I'm finishing my movie.
I don't know. That was weird. That's really weird.
But that final press conference where he's like, and I took this new job with this expansion team. Oh, and I signed Willie Beeman as my quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, in the movie full of like kind of unrealistic football stuff, like that was just what a dumb way to end your movie. Where I go, that was stupid.
And it's like we're trying so hard to put a nice bow on everything at the last possible second.
It really does try to wrap up everything in this movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was definitely one of my notes. It was like, hey, you don't have to resolve like everything doesn't have to work out perfectly for everybody. Like,
yeah, and that's the weird thing in the movie that going for that like grounded, gritty,
and
like
then all
dark
of a sudden
side
it's
of
like Pacino's like, hey, guess what? Fooled y'all. I got everything I wanted, and yeah, it's a weird ending.
But even Cameron Diaz's character having to have like her having a resolution, and being like, sorry, I lost myself and kind of
I know,
their mom, like, and she's
in
like,
the last 5 minutes, everyone has to have some kind of redemption, and that was weird.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of stuff. That's why we're just saying like this movie was. It's like this why it's not a great movie,
right?
Like I'm glad I watched it again. I really am, but it's like it's good. It's got a lot of flaws, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and just a few years later, the movie Friday Night Lights will come out, which is my favorite football movie ever. And I go, here's a movie that did a lot of the things that Any Given Sunday was trying to do, and
just did it better, quite
back
frankly.
to as simple as possible.
Yeah.
They didn't get tied up in a lot of like the overly complicated personal stuff with the coach. In fact, that's one of the things I love about that movie is Billy Bob is presented as coach, and that's it. Like it literally doesn't get hardly into his family. It doesn't over stylize. They actually got football feeling right and stuff. And maybe that's one of the reasons this movie didn't stand the test of time. It's just not long after.
A few years later,
it's like a few years later you get Remember the Titans, which is a movie that general audiences loved as a football movie, and you get Friday Night Lights, which people who want something a little more dark and serious, like that more, and it sort of blows out. I think that might be
a really good point. Those movies came along. I mean, it was a few years later, but it was quick enough that it just kind of erased Any Given Sunday. I was going to ask, because I agree, the football stuff in this movie was whatever. The best is it Friday Night Lights? Probably like the best football ever put up on.
I think it's my favorite.
I would have to agree with you.
It's the one that feels the most real to me.
Once again, though, I'm just going to bring up the fact, I know we've talked about this a lot. It's still a bummer to me that the sports movie has just kind of gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even a flawed one like this, I still enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's like, just give me the team. There's some conflict, there's some drama, there's some injuries, there's some goals, there's some dreams. And, it's like a relatively simple formula for a decent to good movie.
Absolutely. And it's got to be any writer and actor's dream because there's always going to be that speech. Every great sports movie has a speech. When it gets to that Al Pacino speech, I'm going, this had to be what he read in the script that goes, I'm in.
Boom.
This had to be what the writer was like, I can't wait to write this coach speech. And then people are acting it. And we're just
not getting these movies anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be just a tragedy if I didn't mention, as at least an honorable mention for best football movie, Air Bud Golden Receiver.
Well, yeah, I mean, then they really nail the grittiness and everything,
the realism
of that movie. Yeah. I mean, it's not fair to expect anything to do what Golden Receiver did. They did it so well.
Yeah, I mean, when we heard we were getting an Air Bud movie in the football universe, the rest of football movies just threw up their hands and said, "Wow, how are we going to compete with that?
We can't compete with that." Yeah. So take notes. Do what Air Bud Golden Receiver did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for traveling back to 1999 once again with us. Yeah. We got it one more time this year. We've only got one more month. I can't
believe that. I feel like it was a month ago when you sent me that text. Like, let's do 99.
Yeah.
And do you have your next one yet?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah. Have you had time?
I don't have mine yet.
I would say I have my next one, but I'll say it is hard because I've rethought it a bunch of times going like, this is our last pick. All the ones I won't be picking.
I'm conflicted because I have one I think we should do if we're doing 1999, but it's not a feel-good movie. And I'm like, part of me wants to end on just a feel-good.
Maybe we'll consult off camera and make sure one of us picks positive if the other one doesn't.
Okay, maybe we'll do that.
We'll balance out.
So stay tuned. We'll announce them sometime.
That's right. But until then, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.